Okay, I think I'm live. Is anybody in the chat? I didn't advertise this. This is just something I'm doing at the spur of the moment, so I don't even know if anybody even knows I'm on. Hi, I've been drinking. Can you tell? Oh my goodness. Anybody watching? Can anybody see me? Anybody hear me? See some people on here, but nobody's in the chat. So did everybody have fun this weekend? I'm going to ask that question every week, I think. It's like, we all having fun, all cooped up with nothing to do. Hello, Jeff. Welcome. Kogan, welcome, welcome. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? I can't tell if you can hear me or not. Can I get a thumbs up in the chat? Anybody? My mic was working. Okay, you can hear me. Okay, great. I decided to do this chat, or this live stream at the spur of the moment. Hopefully, YouTube doesn't shut this one down like they did my last attempt at a live stream. Once again, I sincerely apologize for that. But it was out of my control, and I even applied for an appeal, and I never heard back from YouTube about it. So I'm assuming that it just got rejected, and that's the end of that. So we are done with that. So I think my live reaction and live viewing live streams are done, because I don't want to have that pulled and yanked again by YouTube if it's against their rules or whatever. I looked at the rules that they said I violated, and looking over them, I don't think I violated any of what they were talking about, so I mean, I don't know. I chalk that up to their algorithms and their automated systems going haywire and finding something that they weren't supposed to find. Or seeing something that wasn't there or something. But before I talk about WrestleMania, one quick thing I do want to mention. My video about Dark Side of the Ring, the New Jack episode, there was one piece I left out of that episode that I wanted to bring up, but it just completely slipped my mind. And it's in regards to the Vic Grimes situation with New Jack, the big fall off the scaffold. It has been speculated, and this was not brought up in Dark Side of the Ring, but it's been speculated that the way New Jack described it, and has described it since it happened, is not really what happened, because if you look at the footage, Vic looks like he's standing on his own power and is assisting New Jack on the bump. And what happened was just a mishap that could have gone disastrously wrong, and it's speculated that New Jack has used the incident to kind of enhance his own mystique and his own character to try and sell himself. But so I don't know. I'm a little surprised Dark Side of the Ring didn't dive into that a little bit, because it's the footage. If you look at it, I'm like, I'm not so sure. It looks like Vic is kind of helping him out on the fall there, but because it's New Jack, I wouldn't be surprised if it was attempted murder, just because I'm like, this is the guy that was the perpetrator behind the mass transit incident and the Gypsy Joe incident and stabbed a guy in the ring. So this one time he isn't actually an attempted murderer. I don't know. I guess the decision's up to you. I'll let you all decide. WrestleMania DVD is $19.99. What, this WrestleMania? They still make DVDs for WrestleMania? Like, why bother? Yeah, I know. I was super frustrated with it, because that stream I was really digging, because I was just watching old WWF VHS tapes that are on the network. But it was also really long. Like, and we had another 2-hour tape to go after at the point where they cut us off, and I was like, all that time, all the chatting, all the things we did during that entire stream, and it all gets lost because YouTube are fucking idiots. Thanks. Yeah, I'm working on my Corona beard. This is my I want to look like Rip Van Winkle by the time I'm actually off of quarantine. So I guess now we can go into the WrestleMania discussion. I'll ask you guys, those of you in the chat, what did you think of WrestleMania? What's the overall opinion? Because I've got my opinions, and it's kind of... They're opinions that I kind of came into the event already set in stone what it was going to be, so I just kind of accepted WrestleMania for what it was. But before I give my more detailed thoughts, I'll hear what you all had to say. What did you all think of WrestleMania? And which event did you prefer? Did you prefer night 1 or night 2? Lumberjack look. Yeah, I'm going for a lumberjack look. I'm a lumberjack, and that's okay. Gold star to whoever gets that reference. Because I will say this, though. Whatever things, and I'm not going to be entirely glowing in my discussion of WrestleMania, but I will say it was nice to have something new this weekend, because most of what I've been watching are like old movies, old TV shows, and wrestling, most of what I've been watching for pro wrestling is WCW Nitro. So, and I've been loving it. Oh my god, it's so much fun reliving all that stuff, but and even like remembering the stuff I completely forgot about. It's really, really good. But but you're not getting anything new or any new experiences. So I do give this WrestleMania credit for at least trying to give us something to enjoy in the midst of all this chaos. I was thinking about doing a video at the end of when this is over. When this is all over, God knows when that will be, but when we're finally allowed to go outside again, I was thinking about doing a video of reviewing all of the non-wrestling things that I watched in quarantine, but that list is piling up quite a bit. I spent all weekend watching the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes show, and oh my god, Jeremy Brett is the best Sherlock Holmes. Any other answer is wrong. I have a soft spot for Basil Rathbone because he was my first. But Jeremy Brett, he is Sherlock Holmes, and I better not hear anybody in the chat say Benedict Cumberbatch or Robert Downey Jr. Like them, but they're not Jeremy Brett. Alright, I'm seeing, alright. WrestleMania was fun, lots of fan service, but desperately needed a crowd. Night 1 edged out night 2. Mr. Wrestling Fan, welcome to the stream. It was, Fernando, it was nice that it's a 2-day event, easier to watch, middle of the road. Now, yes, I do like that it was a 2-day event. There's actually a couple things about this WrestleMania I hope they adapt for real WrestleManias in the future, but I love that it was a 2-night event, which is something that I was advocating for, especially after Wrestle Kingdom did it. I'm like, look, you want to steal it from Wrestle Kingdom, go right ahead and do it, because WrestleMania has gotten so goddamn long, it's become unmanageable, so you might as well just split it up into 2 events. So I was happy that they did it for this. And I hope they continue to do it in the future. Because I think if WrestleMania is going to be this long, you're probably best, making it a 2-night event. Because that makes it a lot more digestible. Now, granted, I watched night 1 and night 2 back to back. I didn't watch night 1 last night. I watched it right before night 2 started. Because I was on a Sherlock Holmes kick. So, I watched the full Mania anyway, like all in a row, but hey, whatever. Alright, Kogan's Run. I hated it, but I won't call it the worst since it was completely out of their control. 11 still takes the title of worst. I would agree with that. Taker AJ was the best. If you take into account the situation they were in, it felt like it was fine, but it really didn't feel like a Mania. The cinematic matches made it for me. Clark, welcome to the stream. Okay, so I'm seeing, a lot of, didn't feel right, but you appreciate the effort, which is kind of where I'm at, where I won't say I enjoyed it, I don't know if that's the word I want to use, but I appreciated the effort that went into it. I liked that it was 2 shows, that made it a lot easier to watch. I also liked, one other thing that nobody's talking about, but one thing I actually kind of admired about this is that it had, actual undercard matches. Because when I grew up watching WrestleMania back in my day, I was a young man back in the 1800s, and I'm an old man now yelling at the sky. The older WrestleManias that I grew up with, they would have these throwaway kind of, I don't want to say garbage matches, but filler matches. They'd be like, all right, you just had a big grudge match, now we're going to give you Greg Valentine versus Earthquake, or something like that. Where Earthquake just gets a win because we want to keep Earthquake looking good, so we'll just throw that match out there. And even a match, I'm referencing WrestleMania 7 because it was my favorite when I was a kid, but Bulldog versus Warlord. Simple grudge match, didn't go that long, solid power match. Everybody went home happy. It was a perfectly solid match, went 8 minutes. Perfectly solid, enjoyable undercard match. And this WrestleMania actually had some undercard matches, like the Otis-Dolph Ziggler match. I was so happy that got a singles match. And now, granted, I have not watched Raw and SmackDown, so I haven't been following this whole storyline. It looks stupid. It kind of reminded... I made a joke on Twitter. It reminded me of Diamond Dallas Page and Kimberly Page and Dave Sullivan from, like, the early to mid-90s. But it's like, look, they had a storyline. I've seen all the memes, so it's obviously caught on with people. And they, instead of throwing them into a Battle Royal or throwing them into a Money in the Bank, they said, hey, let's actually do the singles match at WrestleMania. Good, and I hope they continue to do that in the future. I think WrestleMania, a lot of time has been taken up for, like, the special guest hosts, and which I still don't understand why WrestleMania needs a guest host, but hey. Very long non-wrestling segments, and stuff where you could probably just, you know, a lot of places where a popcorn match would go, those spots have been replaced by other things. Even the Hall of Fame segment is kind of taking the place of the popcorn matches, which I'm not advocating get rid of the Hall of Fame segment, because I love the Hall of Fame segment, but it was just kind of nice that the guys that had a storyline actually had that storyline conclude at WrestleMania. Also, it was nice that Dolph Ziggler actually got a singles match at WrestleMania for once. That was nice, if nothing else. WrestleMania 2 being in 3 cities was inspired by Starrcade 85 being in 2 cities. I'm sure that that's true. Mania was good for what it was. The talent did their best they could to make it work. I enjoyed Night 1 better. And that's Jake Owens. Thank you for joining the stream, Mr. Jake. But yeah, let me go into... So there were some, like, formatting things I kind of liked that they did, and I hope they adopt for a real WrestleMania, hopefully by next year when all this is blown over. But my overall impressions, and I'm not going to go over every single match, because what's the point? When you don't have a crowd, to me that's a huge component of what makes wrestling work. And it feels like there's something missing. It just does. When you don't have a crowd, it feels like you're missing something. And, you know, I saw videos that Hulk Hogan and The Rock recently made talking about their match at WrestleMania 18, which I still hold up there as one of the greatest WrestleMania matches ever. To me, it's the definitive dream match come true. Best case scenario, when you actually put together a dream match, it was the best case scenario, and worked about as well as anything possibly could. And both of them talked extensively about how much the crowd affected how the match played out and actually forced them to change. And that's the thing. When you don't have a crowd reacting to stuff, the wrestlers can't really react to anything, and they can't really be spontaneous. They can't really feed off the energy of the crowd and add a little extra oomph to everything. So when you're watching these matches in an empty gym, basically, without a crowd, it almost feels like you're watching a walkthrough. And that's how a lot of the matches felt. That's how almost all the matches felt, except for Cena and The Fiend and Undertaker and AJ. They all just kind of felt like walkthroughs of what the Mania matches were supposed to be. You need a Mr. McBossman t-shirt? Okay. How brutal would you say the Tully Magnum I Quit match was for its time? I would say it's about as nasty a fight as you could ever watch. I mean, that really felt like two guys trying to kill each other. That was, if you haven't seen Tully and Magnum TA from Starrcade 85, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best matches of the 80s, in my opinion. I think the outcome of Otis versus Ziggler showed that Vince might not be a soulless bastard after all. Yeah, the fat guy got the girl at the end. It's great. Elijah, welcome. B-Slim81, welcome. It's so dumb when they still taunt like they're still a crowd. Okay, I wanted to talk about that. There were so many instances throughout both shows where the talents were playing to the crowd that is not there, and it is super awkward. It was most noticeable in the very first match on night 1, the women's tag title match. And every time it happened, I'm like, it just makes it even more awkward when they're playing to a crowd that's not there. And another thing I noticed throughout most of the matches, that it felt like the talents were being extra loud to try and make up for the fact that there's no crowd noise. And that also got a little distracted, because I remember Baron Corbin was just shouting at the top of his lungs, and it's like, this looks really awkward, and it feels really awkward. But again, what do you do? It's the situation that's been handed to you, so you just make the most out of what you can. God, I want to talk about some specific matches. The two title matches, the two main event title matches. Being an agent for a Goldberg or Brock Lesnar match has got to be the easiest goddamn job in wrestling today, because it's like, just spam finishers. Just spam finishers the whole time and you're done. That's it. That's all you got to do. Just spam finishers. It's got to be super easy. Super easy. And one other thing I'll talk about, I really do feel bad for a lot of the guys, mainly Edge and Drew McIntyre, because I felt like they were poised to have like really big WrestleMania moments, and they kind of had it yanked away from them by circumstances that are outside of everybody's control. Edge was supposed to have his grand return to WrestleMania in the big stadium venue, and instead he has to have a overly long last man standing match with no crowd and whispering commentary, a match that dragged on for what felt like an eternity. I saw the bell time was like almost 40 minutes. I'm like, it felt longer than that. That thing went on forever, but instead of getting a grand return, he just kind of got this attempt at trying to make the fact that they're trapped in the PC work, and it just didn't work. So I would think of the two nights, the last man standing match was probably the match I enjoyed the least. But I forgive it, because it's like they tried to make it work and it just didn't work. So I don't want to sound like I'm harping on it, but I just feel bad for Edge that his big WrestleMania moment kind of got stolen from him. And Bayley did the same thing. She cut a whole promo to an empty ground. Yeah, I mean, it was happening all throughout the two shows. It was bizarre. It was really bizarre. Carrie was hella loud. Yeah, Carrie said, yeah, they were the ones that were the most noticeable, I think. So at least they got the worst one out of the way first. The best way to describe that show is WrestleMania, the Mulligan. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's just kind of like, again, I don't want to say I enjoyed it, because I don't think that's the word to use. I just kind of forgive the circumstances and what led to us getting a WrestleMania like this, because I sure as hell wouldn't want to see another pay-per-view like this. But it's like, again, what do you do? What do you do when you've got this thrown on your lap? Yeah, poor Edge. But the other one I felt really bad for was Drew McIntyre, who was supposed to close out WrestleMania, big main event spot with a win over Brock Lesnar, and he gets the win in an empty gym. And it's like, man, that sucks. It sucks. And I just feel bad for the guys and the gals that probably wanted to have a WrestleMania moment, probably would have had a WrestleMania moment, but unfortunately they just kind of had to make the most out of a bad situation. I guess I should talk about John Cena versus The Fiend, which I'm not even 100% sure if I can qualify that as a match. Was that even a match? Does that count as a match? How does one, rate that? I don't know. I felt like I was watching an attempt at trying to recreate a student art house film or something like that. It was a really weird segment, I guess I'll call it. I'll say this, I feel like I can't make fun of the Dungeon of Doom anymore, because we've officially, I thought the Dungeon of Doom was as silly as we could have gotten, and RoboCop doing a run-in was as silly as we could get. I'm like, no, it got so much sillier. It got so much sillier, but Cena Fiend, it was just random nonsense the entire time. And at first, it was kind of like both guys transforming throughout all their previous gimmicks. But then they worked Saturday night's main event and WCW into it, and the NWO into it. I'm like, okay, now I'm just confused. I'm like, this is. It did have a couple of funny lines, like, "This is good shit." The McMahon boss puppet or whatever that thing was, but it had a couple of funny moments, but it was so goddamn weird, and not in it wasn't coherent. It was just random mess of everything. It was crazy, but again, would I rather had a match in an empty gym or an attempt at something creative? I guess I'll give him props for trying something different. And even making things like the final deletion look normal. The final deletion looks practically sane compared to that. So, whether or not you enjoy it, I guess is up to you. But points for creativity. I'll give him points for creativity. And what else happened throughout the weekend? What other specific matches do I want to call? Oh, the ladder match. The ladder match and Seth versus Kevin Owens, I feel so bad for those guys because they're there doing these daredevil spots. And Owens did this thing where he jumped off the WrestleMania sign through an announce table, and the ladder match had some crazy shit, like John Morrison doing a tightrope walk over the ropes and everything. And it's like, and they're doing it in front of nobody, and it just looks so weird. And it's just, oh god, they're killing themselves for nothing, and I feel so bad. But again, what do you do? I thought the finish to the ladder match was a little awkward and clunky. I thought they were going to do something when I saw the setup. It's like, okay, so you've got a triple threat singles match for the tag team titles. I'm like, that's the most WCW thing to ever happen at a WrestleMania, but okay. And I thought they were going to do something where one guy came down with one belt and another guy came down with another belt, and they were going to be awarded the tag team championships, and there would be some kind of a controversy where their partners get pissed off or something, and maybe their partners form a team, and you get all sorts of like creative nonsense. But they didn't do that. John Morrison just won. It was like, oh, okay. they didn't try to think. They had an opportunity to kind of like think outside the box a little bit, and they didn't do it. So, hey, whatever. I couldn't stop laughing during that Cena Wyatt match promo thing. It's like, it felt like an acid trip the whole time. And I've never done acid, but I would guess that that's kind of what doing acid would feel like, is you would see something like that. What happened there, but yeah, it was weird. It was different. Now, if I had to pick a favorite match of the entire weekend, and again, I don't want to... It's hard for me to say I enjoyed any of it because it was so, like, it's just so weird to watch wrestling shows in front of no audience. And it's not just WWE either. It was like this week's NXT bored me to tears because you have all these matches where there's no audience to react to anything. And AEW, my favorite parts of this week's AEW Dynamite were Britt Baker mugging for the camera when she was whacking Cody with her shoe. That was hysterical. And Jake Roberts' promo. Those are my favorite parts of Dynamite this week. And it's just really hard to put on a wrestling show when there's no crowd there, and you can only do so much to cover that up. And eventually it's going to get to a point where you're just dying to have an audience there watching wrestling. And I'll tell you what, the first crowds that get to go see like any wrestling shows, like a Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Dynamite, they are gonna be red fucking hot, and it's gonna be. I will actually watch Raw and SmackDown when we get crowds back in the venues because it'll actually be fun to watch. If we only had Mike and the bots doing commentary for the Firefly Funhouse match, I would have marked for that. If the fucking, like, the crew of the Satellite of Love just popped up right in the middle of that thing, I actually would have popped like a... There's a celebrity guest spot they could have done. I was getting sick of watching wrestling in an empty arena, so I said, fuck it, I loved watching it. Yeah, and that was why they did it. They did it, it's like, okay, we gotta have some matches where we're not just in an empty arena, and that's exactly why they did it. I just thought it was just weird, random nonsense, whereas, well, I'll talk about it in a little bit. Charlotte pissed me off so much. I've always been a Becky fan, but if they were gonna take the belt off of her, this was the perfect time. You know, at this point, I'm like... Whatever. I didn't really care about either match, to be honest with you, but it's like, oh, whatever, who cares? Now we've got Charlotte back on NXT, I guess. I'm sorry, I'm catching up on the comments here. The 24/7 title was a waste of time. It is a waste of time. That's what the 24/7 title is. It's a meaningless belt that I don't know why anybody... I don't know why any wrestler would want that belt within the confines of like the storyline. Like, why would any human being want that thing? And I also don't understand like what's the value in it. It's just every once in a while you just get a bunch of people doing random run-ins to try and beat somebody for a belt, and that's it. There's no like payoff to it. And I presented an idea in a past video to try and make that belt mean something, but you're talking to a guy that I hated the hardcore title 24/7 post WrestleMania 2000. To me, it should have ended at WrestleMania 2000 because a lot of the stuff with Crash Holly and like the ball pit and getting jumped at an airport in a hotel room, that stuff was fun. But you had your destination point at WrestleMania 2000. I felt like it should have stopped there, and they kept it going for another 2 years. And I'm like, oh my god. And every time they would bring it onto the show, I was like, I hate this. I hate this so much. It's so overstayed its welcome. At least promos without crowd interruptions have been nice. Yeah, no what chance. That's kind of nice. I appreciate not having what chance. Both world title matches were under 5 minutes. Fuck that. It was, well, again, it's like Lesnar. I guarantee you Lesnar marched in there and said, okay, we're doing, because if the rumors are true that he was pissed off at Vince McMahon, and pretty much just did the show just to do it, I'm sure he was just like, let's just go in there, get the fuck out, and I'll drop the belt, and then peace out, motherfuckers. So I'm sure that was on Brock's mind for that. Like, Brock doesn't care. That's the thing. Brock doesn't give a shit. Like, he will do whatever it takes to get a paycheck. And sometimes that actually works to their benefit, like Survivor Series, that one year where Goldberg beat him in a minute and a half, and it was shocking. But it's, Brock, like, he doesn't care. So, yeah, well, you're going to get a 5-minute WrestleMania main event, or however long it was. And then Goldberg, it's like they realize how limited he is, so they keep it as short as possible. But I think the appeal of that is kind of worn thin. It's like, Goldberg, you should have stopped at Mania 33, buddy. That was your cutoff point. You should have stopped there, but had to come back. And poor Braun, they finally put the belt on him like 3 years too late. And he only got the title shot because Roman dropped out of the show. And it's like, poor Braun. It's like, yeah, he should have had that moment 3 years ago. And he gets to win in an empty gym in a match that had no build-up because he wasn't supposed to be there. And it's like, all right, great. No, I feel bad for Drew. That's my whole thing. I feel bad for him because it's like his big moment kind of got yanked out from under him, I feel like. I think the WWE wants to try and make the Patriots relevant, remain relevant by having Gronk. Maybe. I don't know. That's going to be interesting next season, though. I want to see how Tom Brady does with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's going to be fascinating, I think. But, taking the championship off the Fiend was one of the worst decisions they have made in recent memory. Well, the payoff they wanted, which was Roman versus Goldberg, didn't happen, so it almost makes it look like it's like karma got back at them for taking the belt off of the Fiend. It's like the world got back at the WWE. Oh, you want to make that stupid decision? Guess what? We're gonna kill the match. That the coronavirus is gonna come in and kill the match that you want to have. So fuck you. No Mercy 2017 was the time to put the belt on Braun, and they ruined it. Probably, yeah. As a Patriots fan, get off a stream, Patriots fan. I'm just kidding. Gronk was especially crazy on the show. I'm still confused. Like, why does WrestleMania need a guest host? I don't understand that. I've never understood that. It's one of those weird things. It's become a tradition now. We have a guest host. I'm like, but why? What does the guest host do? I don't understand. I guess Rock kind of started that, but then Hogan did it at 30, and it just became a thing. With Braun putting his foot in his mouth on Twitter. Oh, yeah, that whole situation. Yeah, that was awkward. Oh, Beyond the Mat? Yeah. He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! This entire Mania was a mindfuck. Yeah, it was. Anyway, I haven't talked about my favorite match yet. If I had to pick a favorite match from the entire two shows, I'm gonna go with the Boneyard match between AJ Styles and The Undertaker because it was the only match that told a somewhat coherent story, but was not in that empty gym. So, it was it was fun, it was crazy, it was weird, it was kind of like the final deletion in a way, although not as crazy as that. It wasn't like the John Cena Wyatt match that was just random nonsense. Taker and AJ actually felt like it followed a coherent story and didn't overstay its welcome. Like, it didn't feel long, and I just kind of enjoyed it for what it was. It's not something I like to see every week, but for this particular WrestleMania, I'll take it. A lot of things that they tried didn't really work for me. Like, Cena Wyatt didn't really work for me outside of a couple of jokes. Edge and Orton did not work for me at all. That was... Oh my god, that was way too long. If they'd cut the length in half, it probably would have been okay, but that went way too long. But AJ and Taker, I would say that they had the best match of the weekend, whatever that means, like the best match. AJ will probably be back on TV next week, probably. So many people are thanking Matt Hardy for the new way to do crazy matches, which is funny because he left WWE because they wouldn't let him do that shit, apparently. Like, they wouldn't let him interject his own creativity, and now they're doing it. Well, they have to rely on it because they can't have, audiences, and they can't have a crowd. So it's like, fuck it, we're going to do crazy shit. It's like Matt Hardy's probably kicking himself right now. It's like, oh my god, I could have done whatever I wanted for WrestleMania. They probably were like, we are begging to have Matt Hardy in right now because he will do all the crazy shit. Oh yeah, we did get American... Well, it was kind of like a weird hybrid of like American Badass Taker and Dead Man Undertaker. It was like a mix of the two. Yeah, the Boneyard match, it felt like something out of a B-movie, but it was fun for what it was. And like I said, it at least told a coherent story. And given the build-up, the build-up, where I thought AJ looked like a total bitch. Like, I remember the last pay-per-view where Undertaker did something where he defeated Styles, and I'm like, why do they need a match? They're not doing AJ Taker at Mania, right? Because what's the point? I mean, he's already made AJ look like a bitch, so there's no point to doing the match. But they did the match, and it was the most fun thing it was the most fun I had the entire 2 shows. Vampiro started that shit in the 90s, and Lucha Underground was before Broken Matt. The funny thing about Lucha Underground, they didn't do a match like that. They had cutscenes that were like that, but they never actually did a match that was, like, cinematically shot. All their backstage stuff was cinematically shot, and it looked way cooler than what WWE and TNA and all the other people trying to... Even AEW, all the people trying to, like, kind of ape off of that. Like, Lucha Underground just looks so much better. Like, it just did. The music, the way it was shot, it just always looked better than what everyone else has done to try and mimic it. And it's kind of weird. It's like, but as far as I can tell... As far as I remember, Lucha Underground never actually did a match that was like a cinematic, like Final Deletion style match. It was a match in Saudi where Taker beat AJ with a chokeslam and he didn't take his hat off in a trench coat. Yeah, that. It was that, and I think there was something else too. I remember there being another one, but it was like, so what kind of a threat is AJ to Undertaker at this point? It's like, why even do the match at this point? Taker's already beat him, so who cares? And Taker's going to be the face, so... This new documentary of Taker might be telling us that he's done for good. Well, I'll tell you what. If that was Undertaker's last match, that's probably the best they could do. Because I've seen Undertaker work in the last few years, and it's not pretty. So, like, shooting, like, a movie fight scene is probably the best they could do for Taker's, like, last match. Another aspect of the Boneyard match, I don't think I've ever heard Undertaker trash talk that much in his entire career. And it's like, he said all the things in that match. So, Dario was a legit... Yeah, Dario added so much to Lucha Underground. Like, he was like the MVP of the show. Like, he sold... the look, feel, tone, and tenor of the show completely. And he was actually the first segment I saw. Well, the first match I saw, I was just flipping through the channels and I saw Lucha Underground. And it was Ivelisse versus Sexy Star, and that was the first match I saw. And I was like, wow, this looks different. And then I watched the very next scene after that. It was Dario talking to somebody in a bathroom. And I'm like, okay, that looks really different. And it was cool. And I think what Lucha Underground did that no one else has figured out yet, Lucha Underground, the entire show was a TV show. Whereas WWE and AEW and TNA and all these other ones, Impact, I should say, they try to like have it both ways where it's like a live sporting event and a TV show. And when you try to mix the two, it feels weird and like there's too many clashes. But Lucha Underground was just straight up a TV show. And I think that's why they were able to kind of perfect that type of format. Best retirement point for Taker was 27, or I think you mean 28 when you said end of an era. But I think Taker should have retired after the streak ended. I think that should have been the end. They wasted Taker's send-off on the Reigns match. Well, Taker's worked since then, so that was, I don't know if that was supposed to be a send-off, because, I mean, who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? Because Undertaker's one of those guys, it's like, is he going to retire? Like, when is that dude going to retire? And that's the problem with guys. They always stick around too long. And I talked about it with Goldberg. It's like, Goldberg, you could have gone out at WrestleMania 33. You had your chance. You had your chance to run off into the sunset and call it a career. But nope, you had to come back, and it hasn't been great. Yeah. The invisible cameraman thing in wrestling is so damn annoying. I can't stand it. Again, it worked in Lucha because they were straight up a TV show. And they kind of adhered to that format. So it worked in Lucha, but a lot of times in like WWE and things, it doesn't work. So it's just a matter of committing to whatever format you decide to use. I was going to say something. Actually, you know, if you're going to do like the cinematic, like final deletion style fights in wrestling, or if you're gonna have like fights without a crowd, if you let me say that, if you're gonna have fights without a crowd, I think a good one to kind of pull from is the Roddy Piper Goldust match from WrestleMania 12, where that fight really felt like they were beating the shit out of each other, and that looked kind of real. That one looked great, and they didn't have any cinematic cutscenes. It looked very gritty and very real. So that would probably be a better format to use, given the WWE's like live event format. Like the more real, gritty format would probably work better. So I don't know. I just realized this was the first Mania in a long time that didn't have a Triple H match. Yeah, since 23. I think Triple H, hasn't he set the record for being at the most consecutive Manias? Because I think Bret had the record with like 12, but I think Triple H has topped that. I'm pretty sure Triple H has passed that, but trust me, I'm not complaining that we didn't get a Triple H WrestleMania match this year. I was like, when I heard he wasn't going to be on the card this year, I'm like, oh, praise the Lord. No, I don't have to suffer for it this year. But then we get the coronavirus, and then we basically get WrestleMania canceled. So it's like, fuck, be careful what you wish for. Hey, you want WrestleMania to be 2 nights? Be careful what you wish for. You get the coronavirus shows. Oh yeah, the Piper Goldust match, they were legit beating the shit out of each other. That's why it looked real. As I heard Dustin talk about it, and he was like, oh yeah, we laid into each other pretty good. I think one of them like broke his hand or something. Piper versus Goldust is what Orton Edge should have been. Yeah, Piper Goldust went a few minutes. Like, the actual brawl in the Hollywood backlot didn't go that long, didn't overstay its welcome, felt real, felt like they were trying to kill each other, was a perfectly well-shot fight. Orton and Edge, that thing, oh my god, it just wouldn't end. It just would not end, and I'm like, oh my god, please stop this. And the fact that it was a last man standing match made it worse, because you constantly have the referee counting and making noise, and it just enhanced the fact that there's no crowd and that the commentary sucks. It was not great. It was not great at all. What stupid entrance would Triple H have had this year? I have no idea. Trips especially would have been awkward in front of an empty crowd, probably. I mean, everybody was awkward in front of an empty crowd, but Brock Lesnar is the most overrated wrestler of all time. Those are strong words. It's I think Lesnar's a great attraction. And I think when he's motivated, he can deliver something pretty special. And he's one of the most unique talents to ever grace the business. But would I put him up there as one of my personal favorites? No. That's just how I feel. Does Brock Lesnar have something else to do in WWE? I have no idea. Alberto, welcome to the stream. If there was a crowd, I think it would have been better. Oh yeah, I mean that's this WrestleMania in a nutshell. If there had been a crowd, it would have been better. That's WrestleMania. WrestleMania 36. If there had been a crowd, it would have been better. But there was no crowd, so we just got what we got. Triple H would have cosplayed as Pirate Paul Burchill for this show. Oh, would he have done the pirate getup? Would we have seen Triple H dressed up as Captain Jack Sparrow? Captain Jack Sparrow. Oh, beastie. Oh, where's the rum gone? Where's the rum gone? Brock loves money. That's it. Oh, Brock definitely loves money. Oh, Edge and Orton I'm referring... Well, yeah, but I'm saying WrestleMania as a whole, it would have been better if there was a crowd. But Edge and Orton was just... But even if there was a crowd, like that was... They would spend so much time behind backstage, and it just went on forever and ever and ever and ever. And I was like, okay, can we wrap this up? Cut the length in half and put it in front of a crowd, it probably would have been much better. Yeah, they did some crazy stuff in the ladder match, but... again, it's just super awkward to that crowd. Unfortunately, the finish didn't work for me, but it felt like for the TNA fans out there, the Ultimate X match between AJ, P.D. Williams, and Chris Sabin from back in the day. It was 2005, I think it was. I would still say the best Ultimate X match that TNA ever did. They had a similar finish where PD and Sabin were hanging off the X, and they both grabbed the belt. They were holding it. Then AJ kind of dove out of nowhere and took the belt down, so he was declared the winner. And I think they were trying to recreate that here to some degree, with all three of them fighting for the belts. But then Morrison just kind of awkwardly fell with both belts. And yeah, the finish was a little off. What did you think of Mundo, Kofi, and Uso? I pretty much just said it. It's like, they did some, like, crazy stuff in there that would have been insane in front of a crowd, but I also thought it was really weird that the tag titles were defended in a triple threat singles match. Again, I described it as the most WCW thing that to ever happen in a WWE WrestleMania. Cactus Jack getting amnesia and thinking he was a pirate was voted worst promotional tactic in 1993. Really? That was the worst? I kind of like that angle because it was nuts, but hey. I could see Triple H dressing up like an undead pirate with the skull mask. I could see that too. I wouldn't be surprised. What's Triple H's obsession with skulls? Because he even got, when they did the Masters of the Universe WWE figures, he got the Skeletor gimmick. I'm like, why did he get the Skeletor gimmick? You'd think like Undertaker would get that, or somebody that's like on the dark side of things, like Bray Wyatt or something like that. I absolutely hated Corbin versus Elias. Definition of a nothing match. I mean, most of the matches that were in the arena, like in the arena, I kind of like, it was hard for me to kind of connect with them because again, there's no crowd. So, I don't like begrudge any of the performers or the matches that took place in the Performance Center. Because what the fuck do you do in that situation? 10 years from now, I don't think we'll see this Mania on the highlight reel. Oh, no. This one's gonna be overlooked greatly, I think. I mean, when I think of, like, the WrestleManias that I'm gonna revisit, and even the recent WrestleManias, which are way too goddamn long to rewatch the entire thing, because it's funny, I think I've watched WrestleMania 7, like, 9, 10 times in its entirety. Like, WrestleManias, like, as they've gotten longer, it's like my willingness to sit through an entire show again. I'm like, no, thank you. I will just pick and choose what matches I want to watch. But this is one WrestleMania, is like, I can't see myself going back and rewatching any of this, because it's just going to be like a sore memory. Like, oh, hey, remember when we were all quarantined for God knows how long? Remember how boring life was? We were all just cooped up inside with nothing to do but drink and watch dumb shit? Remember what that was like? I don't want to be reminded of it, so I don't see myself rewatching too many components of this particular WrestleMania. I think Triple H is a huge comic book fan, but just hasn't admitted it. This Mania will probably be blacklisted, probably. Because Skeletor is king, that's why. Skeletor is Lord and Master of all Eternia, and soon the universe! I love Skeletor. He's one of my favorite cartoon characters of all time. Sue me. The real match of the weekend was Seth Rollins versus the Giant Enemy Crab from the intro package. They used the exact same intro package for both nights. That was weird. That was weird. I'm like, you didn't come up with another intro for night 2? That's... okay. You're a nurse. Well, credit to you, to the healthcare professionals that are doing all they can during this period. You have my props, good man. The report is that sports events won't be able to fill auditoriums or stadiums until August. God damn, do we have to wait that long? Fuck. I've heard all sorts. I've heard like a year and a half. So who the fuck knows? Who knows at this point? Look, Mum-Ra is awesome. I do love Mum-Ra, which is why I've always wanted to have a Thundercats He-Man crossover like cartoon. We did get a comic, and the comic is a lot of fun, but I would love to have, like... And not like Thundercats Roar, none of that shit. I want, like, the classic Thundercats and the classic He-Man and Masters of the Universe. That's what I want in a crossover. It'll never happen, but it's fun to dream. I actually did like that, yes. Thank you for bringing that up, Elijah. The America the Beautiful, like, video that they put together, that was actually really well done. I did like that. What's your take on Charlotte winning the championship? I don't care. I don't really care, to be honest. It's, because right now it's like, we're not going to have a sense of how anything's going to work until we get back to having people attend these shows. And it might be interesting to have Charlotte back on NXT. I don't know. So, it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it doesn't work. All 80s cartoon villains are awesome. Well, my favorite ones are Skeletor and Mum-Ra, Cobra Commander and Destro, and the Decepticons. Those are my favorites. You know. Oh, and Glomgold and Magic of Dispel, because I love DuckTales. Who were the villains in Centurions? It was Doc Terror and his assistant Hacker. That was a good show. I like that. Inhumanoids was one of my favorites, so obviously I have to mention... Decompose and Metlar and Tendril and Slither and Gargoyle. That was, but I'm one of 10 people that remembers Inhumanoids, so meh. Charlotte would get booed mercilessly if there was a crowd there. Well, that's good. She's the heel in this situation. Jared Quinn, Rhea versus Charlotte was the best straight-up match of the whole weekend. Again, I have a hard time rating matches that don't have a crowd. Because to me, a crowd is a very important part. My favorite match of the whole weekend was the Boneyard match, because it was the only one that told a coherent story and was presented in a way where it didn't rely on a crowd. So, Regal had a lot of good matches in WCW. The Pillman one was good, yeah. Oh, God. Well, I've already heard that no matter what, like, NFL is going to get delayed. Like, I've heard that this season's going to have to be shortened to 14 games. I've heard that. I was actually more surprised that Shayna lost to Becky. I thought for sure that Shayna was going to win the title, but that didn't happen. Oh, by the way, how sad was Becky Lynch's, like, special WrestleMania entrance where she came in on the, like, the big, like, 18-wheeler... the specially designed, which you know they were going to use for like this big elaborate WrestleMania entrance, and they couldn't use it, so she just kind of parks outside and goes in, and I'm like, oh, that's sad. Like, that's sad. That was going to be much cooler in the stadium, but it just, the way it played out, it just didn't work. Mm. Regal's best work was working Goldberg. Oh, God, no, it wasn't. That match was a fiasco. Boneyard and Firefly Funhouse matches were both incredible for very different reasons. The Funhouse match, I won't say I liked it, but I appreciated the attempted creativity. I'll give it that. I appreciated giving us a break from that goddamn empty gym. Actually, I brought this up on Twitter. I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but there was a ceiling fan on top of the ceiling the entire time. And during a lot of the matches, I just found myself focusing on the ceiling fan. It's like, man, my attention span is just dead right now. Where I'm in the middle of a wrestling match and I'm staring at the ceiling fan on top of the PC. It's, But I'll say this, though. I mean, this WrestleMania, it's going to be one... I don't think it's going to be one that people revisit a lot, but it's going to be one that is going to be remembered. It's like, hey, remember the year where WrestleMania was in an empty gym? Remember that? It's going to be like this weird, like, aberration in the history of WrestleMania. That's 2 years in a row where the special women's entrance shows up in a helicopter truck and then it awkwardly cuts to the other wrestler making their entrance. Yeah, they did that to Charlotte last year. I remember that. I thought that was weird too. What are your thoughts on Taker Kennedy First Blood and Last Ride matches? I remember liking the Last Ride match. Again, I haven't seen it since it first aired. I remember liking that one. The First Blood match, I have absolutely no memory of at all. Congratulations, Patrick. You found the venue's only attending fan. That's the line of the day right there. Yes, I did. I noticed it. I was the one fan there in the entire building. I had to stare at it and give it all my attention. Alrighty, so I've been on for... Good God, it's past midnight. Oh my God. It's like a real WrestleMania took place. KO WrestleMania moment is going to be forgotten within a month. Well, I think a lot of this is going to be the minute we start having crowds again, like, they were going to wipe all of this under the rug that any of this actually happened. I have a feeling Ciampa and Gargano will continue. They say this is the end, but given the circumstances, they will try to have a proper blow-up. Okay, are they going to have another cinematic fight like Taker and AJ? Is that what... Are they going to do that with them? Because it felt like... That was the impression I got from the segment with Triple H. That they're going to have, like, something similar to what the Boneyard match is. So, alright, so I've been on for over 50 minutes. It's past midnight. Let's do a quick question and answers before I go. So, for the next, let's say 20 minutes, go ahead and ask me whatever you want. And I will stay on and answer those questions. Okay. How happy were you when Jeff Hardy won the WWE title in 2008? Not happy. Jeff Hardy was never one of my favorites. Not that I disliked him. I was just like, oh, he won the title. That's cool. That was my reaction to it. It was like, I wasn't happy. I wouldn't say I was happy. I wasn't upset. It was just like, oh, that happened. Okay, cool. What have you been binge watching in quarantine? Well, this weekend I binge watched the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes. That was the big thing. I just recently rewatched all of Samurai Jack. I love that show. That might be my favorite show that Cartoon Network ever did. And I was so happy that they brought it back and gave it a final season to kind of conclude everything, like a decade and a half later after it gotten canceled. But what else have I watched? I watched all of The Outer Limits. Which is Not as good as the Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone's much better, but those are the things I kind of marathoned. I also watched all of Blackadder. Series 2 is my favorite Blackadder series. I've been watching Better Call Saul, but I would have been watching that anyway because it's like my favorite show on TV right now. And a bunch of movies. Like I watched The Invisible Man, I watched Whiplash, all the Blu-rays that I got for my birthday. I watched all of those. So yeah, I've been keeping myself busy, and I've been watching WCW Nitro. The most disappointing thing during this whole weekend is that we were also lost a future Motor City Machine Guns reunion for Impact's There's No Place Like Home. Oh man, were they going to reunite? I didn't know that. That's a shame. Since Jinder and Drew are now in the WWE Championship history, is there a conceivable chance Heath Slater wins a world title or even the IC or US title at any point in his career? Anything is possible, but I highly doubt it. What does your gut feeling tell you on if Double or Nothing will happen? What is it, in May? I'm hearing that the quarantine's going to be lifted. Most people I've talked to and most sources I've listened to have said June. At the earliest, June. So it looks like it's going to be pushed back. If it happens at all, it'll be pushed back. What guys were you happy when they won their first world title? Well, back in the day, like when Brett won his first, I was happy, even though I didn't see it. It happened over a weekend. It was like, oh, Brett's the champion now. And I'm like, wait, what? What the fuck? I was happy when AJ won his, because I've always been a big fan of AJ. I was happy when like CM Punk won his, because Daniel Bryan when he won his. Trying to think of some other ones. Sting when he won his, even though I didn't see it live. I didn't see it until a couple years later, but when I saw Sting win his first world title, when I finally saw footage of it, I was super happy when it happened. What did the old school TNA do positively and negatively that AEW can learn from for their product moving forward? They can avoid... they have to build their new stars, and I think that they're doing that. I think they're relying on like the guys like the Sammy Guevaras, the Darby Allins, the MJFs, those type of guys. They're investing in their future, which is a good move. Something that TNA was like kind of averse to at various points, where they was like, no, we've got Sting, we've got Kurt, we've got all these other guys, we're fine. And it felt like we've got Kevin Nash, so why do we have to have Samoa Joe go over Kevin Nash when we've got Kevin Nash, things like that, where TNA basically had the future right there with like AJ, Joe, and so many other guys, and they just decided to keep relying on the past. So they could, and then when they started relying on the present with like Bobby Roode and Austin Aries, it was already kind of too late. The damage had already been done by that point. And I think AEW's done a pretty good job of recognizing who's getting over, who are like the new talents that are getting over, like the Darby Allins, like the MJFs and the Sammy Guevaras and those type of guys. So I think they're doing a pretty good job with that so far. But again, we'll wait and see. What positive things did TNA do that they could learn from? Trying to think of something. And TNA did do some positive stuff. They invested well in tag team wrestling. The X Division at one point was awesome, even though the rules of the X Division made no sense. So it's like, TNA did a lot of really good things, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head that TNA did that was great that AEW isn't also doing right now. So, Okay. What do you think of Steve Blackman? I liked him for what he was. He was kind of like a neat little like karate guy in the middle of the show, and he had a few good runs here and there. I loved Head Cheese. I thought that was a funny like comedy tag team, but yeah, I like Steve. He wasn't like a favorite or anything, but I enjoyed him. How was Invisible Man? Okay, this is coming from somebody I've hated a lot of the remakes for the Universal Monster movies. I love the classic Universal Monster movies from the 30s and 40s, and most of the remakes that have come out lately have been terrible. So I went into this with super low expectations. Saw it, I kind of liked it. It was pretty solid. It was actually not bad. So I recommend checking it out. It was actually a pretty solid movie. How do you book the final systems? Kyle enjoys wrestling. Welcome to the stream. At this point, I don't even know, because they've had multiple opportunities to end it. I think the Simpsons movie probably would have been the best place to end it. I would even say like an episode like Homer's Enemy would have been a great one to end on, because that was the point where the show became self-aware that it's ludicrous. And I think that would have been a great final episode. But we're like 20 years removed from that one. So I don't even know what you do for a final episode at this point. I wouldn't know what to do. I guess I would probably have the Simpsons move out of Springfield. It's probably the only thing I could possibly think of to kind of provide any kind of closure. But they've moved out of Springfield before, so who knows? Who the hell knows? Steve Austin, yeah, I was happy when Steve Austin won the world title for the first time. Mick Foley, yeah, that was one. I was super happy when Mick won his first world title. Have you watched either Oz, The Sopranos, or The Wire? If so, quick thoughts. I've seen bits and pieces of Oz, but not enough to get a full, like, I know what it's about, but not, like, enough to really judge it. The Sopranos I've seen, really liked it. It's great mafia drama. I typically prefer those type of stories in movie format, but The Sopranos was really good. And The Wire, also very good show. I didn't watch it all the way through, but I have watched like most of the early seasons and the finale, so I get the basic gist of the whole thing, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's great. Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. Well, Chris Benoit's world title win, that was kind of been brushed under. I'm sure WWE wishes they could take that one back. Chris Benoit, oddly enough, probably the only thing that wasn't referenced during the Firefly Funhouse match. Oh god, like what are they gonna do when like the voice actors for The Simpsons start dying off? Like what are they? Which some of them are. Like Marsha Wallace has passed away, so I mean who knows. The Marco Stunt can do the Spike Dudley crowd spot. I'm sure that they want to do that spot with him. That spot scares me because it's like something could easily go wrong there where you hurt somebody in the crowd. I mean, I know that Spike's a tiny guy and Marco Stunt's a tiny guy, but it's like I don't know. To me, you're asking for a disaster when you do a spot like that. Have you seen Clockwork Orange? If so, what do you think? I have seen it. Love it. I think it's very good. Great, like, kind of psychological, fucked up type of film. It's almost like a comedy in a way. If you look at, like... and I'm sure it didn't come across... At the time it came out, it was considered, like, the most horrific of horror films. And now people kind of look at it. It's almost like a comedy. The way it kind of... The tenor and the tone of it. It's very weird. It's a very, very dark comedy. And I found that very interesting. But yeah, no, Clockwork Orange is very good. It's fucked up as all hell, but it's very good. How happy would you be if Family Guy finally ended? I wouldn't be happy, but I would be relieved. Like, oh, thank God, that show finally ended. Kind of like The Simpsons. It's like, look, it had its run. It was very good at one point, and now it's overstayed its welcome. Please end so we can talk about how great you used to be. Oh, yeah, no, oh my God. The last time I watched The Simpsons, Marge's voice sounded so old. So old, and I'm like, oh my God, can we please just pull the plug on this so we can end this? What's the best thing about late 90s WCW in your opinion? The build up to Hogan Sting and all the stuff in between that led into that. The NWO, the formation of the NWO, Sting becoming a darker character. All the things that they did to build into that match was all great. So that's the thing. I mean, when I look back on WCW, that's the thing I remember the most fondly, is the build-up to Hogan Sting. Match itself sucked, but the television and the build-up to it was fantastic. Oh my god. All right, any more questions? Or can I go to bed now? Don't make me go to bed because then I have to wake up in the morning and get... Oh my god, at work. They've been driving me crazy at work. I've had like 3-hour meetings the last like 3 work days. And it's... I mean, I think some of the people in my office are going stir crazy. So they're just having these meetings that go unnecessarily long. And it's just driving me nuts. Yeah, The Simpsons is literally... I was literally a toddler when The Simpsons first started. I am now in my mid-30s. I mean, for God's sake. It's like that thing, like, with Undertaker, it's like, look, I was literally in kindergarten when he debuted as The Undertaker. I am now in my mid-30s. It's time to stop. Like, can we please just retire? I was thinking of this movie today. It's a Keanu Reeves movie he did during his Matrix days. It's The Replacements. I own it and we'll watch it soon. It's a movie for football fans. I like The Replacements. It's a solid movie. How big a fan of you of Kane when he first debuted? Loved Kane. I loved the storyline, loved the build-up, and when he debuted, I was like, okay, this is great. I loved, arguably the greatest debut of all time. I loved it. People say that 2016 was the best year for WWE in the 2010s. Would you agree? Honestly, so much of it was so similar that it all kind of warps together for me. So I couldn't tell you. Like, I couldn't distinguish one year from the other. They all, like... the last, like, 15, 20 years, it all felt almost exactly the same to me. With only brief... I would say the best year, by virtue of having the CM Punk pipe bomb, I would say 2011 was the best year. And just for that. And even though they fucked that up, it was like, dude, that was the most interesting thing to happen in the entire decade. You know, so by virtue of that, I'll say 2011 was the best year. But so much of it has just been, you know, homogenized, boring, paint-by-numbers bullshit that it's hard for me to, like... I have a hard time even distinguishing the different years from each other. Are you a fan of Alice Cooper? Yes, I am a fan of Alice Cooper. I love Alice Cooper. He's great. Who's your favorite on current WWE, excluding NXT? I have not watched Raw and SmackDown. Honest to God, I don't think I've watched a full episode of... No, I take that back. I watched the first SmackDown after the quarantine. So I watched the first empty arena SmackDown. But other than that, I have not watched an episode of Raw or SmackDown all year long. So, to ask me who my favorites are on WWE TV on Raw or SmackDown, I couldn't tell you because I haven't been watching. Welcome to my nightmare. Hey, stupid. School's out for summer. School's out for forever, it seems like. He's got to rewrite that song now. Okay. Any other questions? Any more? I'm here for the next, let's say, okay, we'll give it till 12:30. It's 12:18 on my clock right now, so I'll give you till 12:30. Ask me questions. Do you know the Alice Cooper song Lost in America? Yes, it is a great song. I agree. Thoughts on Triple H's demotion in the company? I don't know the specifics of it. It's very interesting because you would think that Triple H was going to be like the guy that would take over for Vince, and now it doesn't seem like that's happening. So, I don't know. So I don't know all the specifics of it, so it's hard for me to answer that question. Have you been watching MLW lately? Yes. I haven't watched this week's episode. Or I don't know. Did they post an episode on Saturday? I don't know, but I have been watching it. Yeah, it's nice to get wrestling in front of a live crowd, even if it was taped like a month ago or whatever. But yeah, I've been watching it. How weird is this world that we're living in right now? Very weird. Very weird. I'm still not used to it. I'm going to go crazy. Next time you see me, I'm going to be in a straitjacket. Alice Cooper did 2 industrial-inspired albums in 2000 and 2001 called Brutal Planet and Dragon Town. I've heard they're great albums. I don't think I've listened to those, now that you mention it. Industrial music has never been my cup of tea, but I'll have to check those out. Which heel have you hated the most, including when you were a kid? Oh, man. When I was a kid, it was Ted DiBiase. Fucking hated that guy. And it was great. In the best way. I was like, fucking hated it. When Virgil beat him at SummerSlam, I was like, yes! It was awesome. But without a doubt, DiBiase was the one I hated the most. Did Bobby Lashley versus Aleister Black feel like the most pointless match of Mania? Kind of, because there was no real story for it that I was aware of. I think it was the only one that didn't have like any kind of a promo package or anything. But was it supposed to be Lashley versus Rusev? I mean, did that storyline ever wrap up? I have no idea. I honestly don't know. This is what I get for not watching Raw or SmackDown. I'll pose a question to you guys. How long should I let my beard grow out? Should I just... Because, I've always wanted, like, the Jim Neidhart, like, goatee. Where I could, like, kind of grease it up and slick it down and kind of stroke it like Jim Neidhart used to do. I looked up what pay-per-view the Regal Pillman match was. It was Spring Stampede 94. Spring Stampede 94 was a great show. Wasn't that the one that was... had Steamboat and Flair in the main event? Like, one last hurrah for Steamboat and Flair, their rivalry. Was that one? I'm pretty sure it was. Rusev has been off TV for a while. Okay. It just stopped out of nowhere. Okay, well, that's not surprising. Go for the edge look. See, the weird thing is my hair, like, I've tried to grow my hair long before, but it just kind of, like, gets curly and poofy, so I can never, like, have, like, the long flowing hair. It just kind of gets all poofy. I can never quite get that right. Dude, you've got to Neidhart that beard. I had a goatee in college, and the only reason I grew it out because my mom hated it, and I was just being a dick. Do you listen to any podcasts? Mostly wrestling podcasts. I listen to the Bruce Pritchard podcast, the Eric Bischoff podcast, the Jim Cornette podcast, which, boy, oh boy, I cannot wait to hear what Cornette has to say about the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse match. I'm going to sit in front of my computer with a bag of popcorn and listen to that shit, because that is going to be fucking hysterical. Okay, so that was Spring Stampede 94. Cool. I might rewatch that show. That sounds like a hell of a card. Jim Cornette or Vince Russo? I mean, I would lean more on Jim Cornette because I would expect him to at the very least, give me basic Wrestling 101 logic to help my shit make sense. Russo does whatever the fuck he wants and has no care for the rules or anything. And and I also think Russo's style of TV has gone out of style. So he's just as outdated as Cornette is. So, you just get an afro. Well, like, yeah. How would I look with an afro? That would be, that'd be weird. Yeah, the Edgeheads. I remember that. Go for the Bray Wyatt 2013 to 2018 beard. I wouldn't mind that. Cornette must have had a great time with the show. Right. I'm sure Cornette enjoyed every second of this. No, you know what? He probably liked everything except for the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse match. Hey, we've got less than 6 minutes, guys. Let's go. I would look groovy with an afro. I bet I could rock the afro, right? You can actually kind of see... I've never had like a full-fledged afro, but when I was 2 years old, I had like super, super curly hair. And I've seen like the baby pictures of it. I'm like, oh my god, I look like an idiot. I look like I look like Willy Wonka's mini me. That's what I looked like at 2 years old. It was really strange. Edge and Angle had great matches. In 2002, right? Yeah, they had some really good matches at that point. There was some of the better matches in WWE at that point in time. Have you had any interactions with wrestlers in real life? Some that I've met at signings. I've never like bumped into anybody or met anybody in real life, but I've been to a couple signings. I've met Mick Foley. I had my picture taken with Seth Rollins and Natalia when they were at Awesome Con. I've met yeah, I've met a few here and there at like conventions and things like that, but I've never bumped into anybody on the road or anything like that. What's the worst gimmick match? Oh, God. Okay, I'm going to say this one. No one ever brings this up, and I think it's one of the worst matches in TNA history. No one remembers it, and I think it's because it's from the weekly pay-per-view era, but there was a match they did in 2004, and I was just starting to get into TNA at this point. I was liking most of what I saw, but then they did this match. It was called the Luck of the Irish match. It was Simon Diamond, Pat Kenny. He was going by his real name, Pat Kenny, at that point. Versus Big Vito? It was either Vito or Glenn Gilberti. Gilberti was involved in it. I don't remember who the exact opponent was. But the Luck of the Irish match is there are 4 foot lockers at the different corners of the ring. And there's a football with a key on it. And the key goes to one of the foot lockers. And when you open the right foot locker, there's one with, there's 4 foot lockers, 3 of them are empty, and 1 has weapons in it. And if you want to get the weapons, you have to open the foot locker with the weapons in it. And I'm sitting there watching this like, why wouldn't you just hit people with the foot locker at that point? Like, why even go to the trouble of getting the weapons? Or, if you want to figure out which one has the weapons in it, shake the box! Shake the box! And it was just random stupid nonsense that made no sense, and it was one of the stupidest things I've ever watched, and I cannot believe it isn't more derided. And there have been some stupid gimmick matches, the Reverse Battle Royal, the Kennel from Hell, the Concrete Crypt match, which is another one that doesn't get as much hate as it should, the Chamber of Horrors, but the Luck of the Irish one, that one really pushed the levels of what I'm willing to tolerate in any kind of match. Most disappointing movie for you personally? Godzilla 1998. Because I was, grew up a big Godzilla fan, and I was really excited for that movie. I was 13. I didn't know any better. Had I been the age I am now, I would have known. It's like, oh wait, Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich are hacks. They're gonna fuck this up, and sure enough, they did. But I didn't know that at 13. So the end result was what we got, and I was really disappointed. Another one I was disappointed in, I saw the Frank Langella version of Dracula, which I thought was going to be really good, because I looked at the cast, I'm like, oh my god, because Laurence Olivier's in it, Donald Pleasance is in it, and Frank Langella is Dracula, and I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be great. And then I watched it, and I was like, I just shrugged my shoulders at it. It was like, that wasn't what I wanted it to be. Oh god, Cornette's rants are going to be amazing. I can't wait. Favorite dessert, pumpkin pie. Nothing beats a good pumpkin pie. They did a Ring of Fire match, which was a PG version of the Inferno match, and I heard it was awful. When was the Ring of Fire? Who did the Ring of Fire match? I don't even remember hearing about that. Super Mario movie. Oh god, the Super Mario movie. I saw that. I was disappointed in that movie. I saw it on pay-per-view. I didn't see it in theaters, but I remember my parents went out one night and the babysitter was watching us, and to keep us, howler monkeys from misbehaving, my parents ordered the Super Mario Brothers movie on pay-per-view so we would watch it. And I watched it. I remember at that age, so how old was I when that movie came out? I want to say I was 8 or 9. And I saw it and I'm like, okay, this is bad, right? Like, I don't want to say it's bad because I'm 8, but this is bad, right? Like, this is actually really bad. I was also super disappointed that Yoshi was barely in the movie. King Koopa, Bowser doesn't really show up is like Bowser until the end of the movie, and he's only on screen for like 10 seconds. I'm like, oh my god, this sucks. All of this sucks. So no, the Super Mario Brothers movie wasn't very good. Bray Wyatt versus Kane. I have no memory of that. I have no memory of that match. None. 2013, I have no memory of that match. Bray Wyatt's first match. Wow. It's amazing. I have absolutely no memory. Again, this last decade with the WWE, everything just kind of runs together. And there's so much stuff. If it isn't CM Punk or Daniel Bryan circa 2012, 2013, 2014, there's a real good chance I've forgotten about it. Favorite band? AC/DC. They're a one-trick pony, but they have one job. They rock like there's no tomorrow, and that's all I want them to do. So AC/DC, greatest band of all time, because they give me exactly what I want and what I need. All right, so it is past 2:30 here, so I think I'm going to sign off for tonight. Did I say 2:30 or 12:30? It's past 12:30. It's not past 2:30, because boy, oh boy, I have to be up at 6:30 to get on a call, which is great. I love the times that these people are scheduling for these meetings. But anyway, I'm signing off here. Thanks again, everybody, for joining me. Hopefully you all had fun with this WrestleMania weekend. Not an ideal situation, but it was the best we could do given the circumstances. So I'm signing off here, and I will have another Dark Side of the Ring review video coming up after this week's episode, which is the Brawl for All. I'm really excited for it, just to see what the hell they do for this thing. But that is it for now. Thanks again, everybody. I will see you all later.